you had a great career in New Bedford High School football, and you started playing, in the neighborhood is where you really started to pick up football?
Had my own team. The kids had the different neighborhoods had their own teams put together, and I put a team together when I was a kid. And my father taught me, I taught the kids.
Your first coach, Robert Watkins Sr., right?
Yeah.
And
right?
He was a great coach.
He was the best.
What did he teach you?
He taught me all about football, and how to play the game, how to run, and etc. I got to tell you this story though.
Please.
He took me. I was a little guy at the time. I started to grow once I went to high school.
Right.
And he took me over to Wynn Dodge. He knew Wynn Dodge. And it was before the season started. And he took me over there, and he knew the coach.
Mm-hmm.
And he took me in there and he said, "Wynn, I brought you a football player. And it's up to you to see what you can do with him." You know, a lot of fathers and family, they go a little too far
right.
with coaching and etc. He never bothered the coach. He walked out of that place, and that was it.
Now, Coach Dodge was at the high school level?
That's right.
New Bedford High School.
Yeah,
and you excelled. You excelled at New Bedford High School. You know, I got some statistics here.
Yeah.
Junior year, New Bedford High School, you go into the Thanksgiving game, 40-6, 3 touchdowns for Bobby Watkins, 19 for the season. First Bristol County League, All-Star, All-State. Great memories playing those games against Durfee, right?
It didn't help. You know, it was my father that made the difference. I got to tell you, do you have the time?
We have time.
And then he left me there with the coach.
He said, "Wynn, it's up to you from
I brought
now
you
on."
a football player,
right.
and it's up to you to see what you can do with him.
Sounded like you did all right.
All of a sudden, he's getting a uniform.
Right, okay, all right.
He's getting a uniform, and I said, "Thank you, sir." And he said, "What did you say? This is the truth." I said, "Thank you, sir." He said, "Son," he says, "we don't talk that way here." He said, "We're men here. You got to talk like a man."
Well, you were being polite. You were doing what you thought you were supposed to, right?
So what happened was, and then out there, he didn't think I was. Looked at me. I wasn't much of a football player as far as he was concerned. And the first game comes in, I wasn't with the team.
Right.
You know, I had to go up and go.
But then you worked your way in there, and then once you cut loose, only 5'9", right?
So I didn't make the team. I was on the team, but I didn't make the playing team.
Yes.
So I was embarrassed, and I didn't go to the game. So my father said, "Come in." He saw me there, and he said, "Why aren't you at the game?" I said, "Dad, I'm embarrassed. I didn't make it."
Right.
He says, "Well, you're going back there, and you're going to watch the guy that's playing your position, and you watch everything he does, what he does good, what he does bad."
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "That's what and then when you come back here, tell me, you're going to tell me all about it." Yeah. And which I did. You know, I was embarrassed. You know, I was supposed to be out there to play football.
That wasn't easy to do that.
No, it wasn't. And he got me home that weekend after the game.
Right.
Put up in the backyard where football, where you kick the ball.
Yeah, right. Uh-huh.
He put one up there.
So you practiced?
And he put it down and lower, and he had me running with my nose in the ground.
So that's how you ended up with the nickname.
My father, yeah.
The nickname, what was the nickname? Snake?
At Ohio State, they called me the Snake.
This is a positive nickname. Why? Because you were so...
Because I ran so low.
Low to the ground, right?
Yeah.
So now, obviously, you had a great career at high school. A lot of your dad's influence making you...
Best coach I ever had.
Suggesting that you go back, and face the adversity. And then, of course, graduating, it looks like 1950, is that right? Is that the class of 1950? So now you're one of the great New Bedford High School players, okay. So you're thinking to yourself, hey, I want to go on and play in college. You start applying to all these colleges, but the one that you ended up at, you didn't apply to, right?
I had to go to the Big Ten because the Big Ten was the best football in the country at that time.
Right.
And I wanted to play at the highest level. And I sent letters to all of the major teams in the Big Ten. Mm-hmm. Most of them answered it and said they had no place for me. You know, they already have it set. I did get an offer from, of all places, was...
you wanted to go to Yale at one point, right?
That's what I was just going to tell you.
That's the one? Okay, all right.
That was the one, yeah. They offered me an offer to play.
Right, and then how come you ended
However,
up... You ended up
I
not
had
going
to
there?
go way up north for prep school. All their football players, they would send them up there. And I said, no, I'm ready to play football.
Oh, so in order for you to play there, they wanted you to go to prep school first, but you didn't want to do it. You
Correct.
were ready, so you said, forget it.
That's exactly it. I come close, but
so now Ohio State.
I got lucky.
Ohio State wasn't really one that was on the list initially, but then wasn't there someone you knew or someone?
I wasn't
from New Bedford,
interested
right?
in Ohio State because it didn't run the T formation.
Right, that's what you used to run in.
My father taught me the T formation, and I was.
So you were what, the tailback?
I was halfback.
Halfback, okay.
Yeah.
So you decided to not go for Ohio State, but somehow you ended up there anyway.
How did that happen? That's a good story. Titleist had a worker there that was in charge of all of the area where you're from, Ohio State, and he was also very close to the coaches.
Okay.
He was also selected to be one of the guys to find a new coach because the coach that was there quit and left. And he was on their search group. And he worked for Titleist.
And he knew that Bobby Watkins was a pretty good football player.
He didn't know who Bobby Watkins was, but whenever he would come to work, he was in the Midwest, but they would come for meetings and et cetera. And whenever he came in for a meeting, the guys in New Bedford would tell about this kid from New Bedford who was quite a football player. And I guess to make his boss look good, make himself look good with his boss, he got me to go to meet Woody Hayes, who just took over the new job from the old guy there.
Yeah, right.
So I had no interest in Ohio State because they didn't run the T formation. But when Woody got there, he was a T formation guy.
Right. So you knew that. So you went out to see Woody Hayes, right?
Well, he set it up, the fellow from Ohio State.
Okay, yep.
And worked for Titleist.
So did you have to go out there? You went out there?
Yeah, they set it up.
So now you're going to meet Woody Hayes. Now, most people know, whether you're football knowledgeable or not, everybody knows Woody Hayes ended up at Ohio State for decades after that.
Yes.
But the first year you were there, he was there, right?
That's correct. The first year.
So you go out there and you meet Woody Hayes. So I'm sure you go into his office.
Yes.
And you sit down with Woody Hayes. So what was that like?
And we talked, yeah.
What was that like sitting there with Woody Hayes?
He looked at me and he wasn't too sure that I was the type of player that's going to be, to make, to do something with the team.
Right.
But I looked a short guy at the time, and he didn't know how powerful I was.
Well, and you were fast too, right? You were fast
and big, powerful.
What did you tell me? The first step, then by the time you're at the second step,
full gas.
You're already at full speed. So how does that work? You just because most people take a little while to get going, right?
You explode.
Explosiveness.
Yeah, you explode out of there.
All right. So, I imagine that part of it too is reading the holes and everything happening so quickly, so you could read it, right?
So anyway, he looked at me and he didn't think much of a football player.
Well, little did he know, right?
No.
You were like
but he
a
offered.
sleeper, right?
I guess that for his guy that gave him the job.
Right.
Actually, gave him the job.
Right. So he said yes. Now, obviously, he's giving you a chance to play. Obviously, you still have to go to practice. You still have to earn the position.
Didn't know who I was.
So what did you have to do to earn it? During
right
practice
on the football
and stuff like
field.
that? Right on the field, right?
Right on the football field.
So what did you have to do? Practice?
Ohio State now got a new coach. One of the best teams in the country, but they were not playing well because he's running a new program, T formation.
Right.
And that was right up my game.
Right up your alley,
That was
right?
my game.
Yep.
So we're there, and he gave me the offer, and I went to Ohio State, and I was running plays against the varsity,
Right.
and the team was doing awful. He was trying to put in a whole new system in, which was right up my line.
Right.
And the team, the defensive team had enough of it. You know, they were the best defensive team in the Big Ten. The offense was horrendous. I had to run against this offense in practice.
Right.
Three of the top guys on the team, on the defense, went to Woody Hayes and said, "Coach, you got to play that kid from New Bedford, Massachusetts." He said, he's the toughest guy that we've run against.
Yeah, right. So this is great. So this is one of the top defenses.
That's
they're
right.
practicing, and you're running over these guys.
And I'm running over these guys.
And they're saying, "Hey, you better play. We can't stop that guy."
They're pissed because the offense is not doing anything.
They couldn't stop
It's
this guy.
awful.
And hey, that's great. That's a great story. That's a great. So obviously you were in the spot. And I also understand the first time you went into the stadium and you looked around and you thought, "Wow, this is great."
Wow, that was heaven.
You saw the stands and the thing. And you said,
This
"I'm going
is
to
the
play."
place I gotta be.
This is where I got to be.
My whole dream in life
Right.
was to play in the Big Ten.
Well, we're going to dig a little more into the Ohio State experience. One of the great athletes ever to come out of New Bedford, the one and only Bobby Watkins. And we have more with him in a moment here on New Bedford Connections. We're having a great time chatting with the one and only Bobby Watkins, one of the great football players ever to come out of the New Bedford area. And we were just talking about how when Bobby first got his chance to try to make the team at Ohio State, played against, in practice, one of the great Ohio State defensive schemes, and they couldn't stop this guy, and they were like, "Hey, you better put this guy in there." That's how it happened. And those guys, 3 of those guys you said went on to the NFL.
Yes, they did.
And so
Yep,
they had
all
successful
3.
careers in the NFL.
Yep.
Well, obviously you got to the NFL, but let's talk a little bit about Ohio State first. You played at Ohio State for, was it 3 or 4 years?
Actually, 4 years,
Right.
but I didn't play very much that
The
first
beginning,
year.
right, as you worked your way up. And then
Yeah.
one of the stats I see here, the junior year at Ohio State, 153 carries, 875 yards, 5.7 yards a carry the junior year. Senior year, same thing, 660 yards, 119 carries, 5.5 yards a carry. And, of course, that last year, 8-0, you're 8-0. You had to beat Michigan to get 9-0. And then you played in the Rose Bowl game. One of the great dreams that you had was to play at the Rose Bowl, right?
Ever since I knew anything about football.
So as you're
That
coming
was my
down
dream.
the home stretch of that season, and you knew you had to win that game against Michigan to get to the Rose Bowl, what was that like?
It wasn't good, and I'll tell you why. I got injured on the first play of that game, the last game
Against Michigan, right?
against Michigan, and we almost lost that game.
Right. So
Michigan was not a good football team that particular year.
right, and you still ended up beating him. It looks like. Let me see. I have the score here.
That was all in the last quarter.
Yeah, you finally
They
beat him.
totally
21 to
outplayed
7.
us.
You beat him 21 to 7.
And the main reason why I wasn't there.
Otherwise, you really would have.
Doctor said I'd never play again.
Yeah, I remember that. And as a result, you were concerned. A trainer for Ohio
trainer,
State
yeah.
helped you out, right?
I was in tears, boy, and he told me, he said, "Bobby, you listen to me, I promise you'll play in the Rose Bowl.
So he
That
had
was
a
dream.
he had a rehabilitation regimen that he wanted you to go through, right? Going to whirlpool and
And he
stuff. What
did,
was
yeah.
that like?
It was interesting. I had to go in, had a lot of water that they were working on,
Right.
and et cetera. And then it wasn't looking good. And then all of a sudden, as time was we're getting closer to the team was practicing with the outside,
Right.
and I was working with the guy who was running the operation. He promised me, he said, Bobby, you'll pay attention to me. He says, I promise you'll play in the Rose Bowl.
So as the Rose Bowl date came closer and closer, you could feel your knee getting stronger and
Almost,
stronger, right?
yeah. And when the team was working out, and I was just running slowly, around and getting better and better and better, and I realized I could run. And it was really funny. I sneaked in, and they were running plays, and I sneaked in one of the plays, and I ran, and they saw me run, and everybody stopped and started to clap.
Right. Bobby's back.
All the team.
Bobby's back, right?
Team players. And they knew then they were going to win the Rose Bowl.
So you must have been so happy to know that you were going to be able to play in that game.
I was the happiest guy in the world.
And then when the game actually started, you had a great game that day.
Yes, I did.
Scored a touchdown. The team won 20-7 over USC,
Yeah.
and you got a share of the national championship. That must have been unbelievable.
Yes, it was.
Can you describe to people that are watching, like, what is that like
It's
to
hard- it's
have a
hard to
dream
think.
come true like that?
It's very rare for human beings to get everything that they would like in life and do whatever they want to do and do it well. I had that. Was very, very fortunate to have it.
Right.
I was able to play and play well.
Wonderful. And of
And-
course, 10-0, undefeated regular season, and
which
the
is-
share of the national
which is-
championship.
It was a great thing.
Unbelievable. So, of course, now you graduate college.
And saved Woody Hayes' job.
Oh, is that right? So if it wasn't for
He
Bobby
knew that,
Watkins,
yeah.
Hayes would have gone down the tubes.
He knew that.
And he ended up with like 3 decades after that. So then you went into the NFL draft, and you had the great fortune of playing in the NFL.
Yeah.
So now you went in the draft. Obviously, the knee injury. Some teams were probably thinking, "Gee, the guy with the knee injury and all that." So you ended up pretty good second round, but maybe you would have gone even higher than that. But you got a chance to play with the Chicago Bears. That must have been incredible.
Yeah, I led the team, too.
The Chicago Bears when you got
Yes,
there. All right.
same thing. I knew how to make touchdowns.
So you must have played in the original the Soldier Field.
Yes.
That's a great place.
Played at Soldiers Field, but most of our games were played where in the baseball area in the northern part of the
Oh, is that
city.
right?
Yeah,
No kidding.
yeah. They would put in different what do you call it? Stands.
Yeah, right.
Put
So
in
which
stands.
was it, like Wrigley or one of those places?
Yes.
They played at Wrigley Field.
That's exactly where we
So
played.
that's unbelievable. But
Yeah.
I mean, Wrigley Field is still like a shrine,
And it was
even
then.
with baseball or
Yeah.
football,
It was
whatever.
then. And I got really close to some of the players that played baseball there.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, I played it because I had to go and get a lot of work done on the knees.
Right. Well, one of the things when you went to Ohio State, you were the only person of color on the team. Now this is 1955.
For 3 years.
What was that like?
For 3 years.
Was that difficult?
Yes.
Tell me about that a little bit.
Well, you could see things going that with the other guys on the team
Right.
were getting different things that they were doing well with, and et cetera. And I wasn't part of it.
So you must have found that difficult,
Yeah. But I was playing in the Big Ten,
right?
which was the best football in the country, and that was my dream when I was a kid.
So you focus on the positive, right?
Yeah. But it got better. It got better in by my senior year. It wasn't 100%, but by the senior year, those guys knew that how important I was to that team.
Now I see
And they
here.
treated me right.
That's
Yeah.
good. 33 games over the 3 seasons, 11 touchdowns, over 1,000 yards rushing, 235 carries. What an experience to say that you played in the NFL after having had the great accomplishment at the World Bowl.
At the highest level.
At the highest level.
Yeah.
So you're playing against, you're traveling around the country. What are some of the obviously you went to all the different football stadiums, New York and Chicago and, all around the league, Detroit, or whatever the cities that had football at the time.
It was better, though, in professional football because we would practice against different teams in the South.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And that is one of the best stories that I have about me living, working, playing football in the South.
Mm-hmm. So what was that like?
Well, we couldn't stay with the team.
Mm-hmm.
All the persons of color weren't allowed on the team. In the hotels.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But I was a pretty bad guy.
Right.
Because we had to go in the evening and go through our programs.
Right.
And what our plans are and everything. The coaches would keep us, out away from trouble.
Right.
And I would go there. I had to go now where the team was staying.
Right.
I couldn't stay in the hotel. I could go there, but I couldn't stay overnight in the hotel.
And that was common at the time. It was common at the time.
It was ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
It was ridiculous.
But that was the 1950s.
So Alice was pretty tight with the money. And so I told him,
smart with the money.
I told him with all of this foolishness, we had to have a car. He wanted us to come to practice and etc. Got to have a car.
Yeah, right.
I'm not with the team.
Mm-hmm. All right, so you got a car out of the deal.
You got a car out of it.
So that was all right. That was good. That was good thinking. A little ingenuity. So now, when you left the Chicago Bears, what did you do? You ended up having a career after football. Tell me about that.
Well, Jesse Owens was a very dear friend of mine.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
And he lived very close to where we lived.
The great Olympian.
In fact, when I was playing football, she would come to watch the games, and she would stay at his house.
Who would? Your
My
wife. Okay, yep.
And it was Jesse Owens was...
the great Olympian who ran at the Olympics in 1936.
And he had a lot of power in that area.
So did he get you involved in another career? Is that how it happened?
I was running for office.
You were?
Yeah. And I was running as a Republican because they were paying the money.
So now you decided to run for office, right?
Yes.
What office did you run for?
Well, I was working in Chicago. We had moved in, and there were a lot of persons of color were moving into Chicago.
Right.
And people were leaving. And they had a big area in the south end of Chicago. Was totally white. And I was in that area where we were living, and where the business I was doing with the company was there. And I did extremely well where I was, but for that other area down, I didn't get one vote.
Oh, that's too bad. But then you ended up, so the political career didn't go any further than that, but then you started working in New York, right?
Well, I was doing a lot of different work in Chicago, and it was different programs and etc. And I saw a magazine, and I read the magazine, and it had something about
Seagrams
in New York. And so I answered it, and didn't hear from them for about a month. And all of a sudden I hear from them. They said, we're interested. We want you to come to New York and see if you'd be interested in working.
And you did. You worked there. How long did you work there?
A long time.
And you lived in Connecticut.
Yeah.
And eventually retired in around 2000.
I loved that business, though.
Now, let me ask you this. I'm going to go back to Ohio State just for a second. You met your wife when you were at Ohio.
Right.
Willis, who's here today.
Correct.
What impact did that have on you?
It was the best thing that ever happened to me at Ohio State. I call her the ugly sapphire.
So obviously, Ohio State was big because you met Willis, and you went to the Rose Bowl. So that was that's a double
It's everything I wanted to
double
do.
double whammy right there.
Everything I wanted to do.
Now, when you finally retired from Seagram's in 2000, you decided to come back and locate in the New Bedford area,
Correct.
living in Dartmouth. Why did you want to come back to
I love
New
New Bedford. I love New Bedford, and she came while we were still in school.
Right.
She came to visit here. Her mother and father said that she could come,
Right.
and she saw the ocean for the first time.
Right.
And you could see tears in her eyes, honestly. She fell in love with this area.
Right.
She didn't want to be anyplace else but here.
So you figured, all right, let's go back to the greater New Bedford area. You settled on Dartmouth, and you've been there for the last decade or so, right?
Yeah, since the turn of the century.
So what's it been like? You come back, I'm sure you've been able to reacquaint yourself with a lot of friends
A
and
few people, not
people
many.
like that. Really, a lot of
Most
people?
of them are gone.
Yeah, right. Moved away.
Hard to
so-
believe.
Yeah, right.
Or passed on.
Yeah, right. Moved away or whatever. Yeah.
Hardly any of them, when I was here, as
Right.
living in this area.
You know, I'm really glad that you brought that's an Ohio State baseball cap right there.
Yeah.
So that was appropriate that you decided to bring that. I mean, you have a lot of pride in those years, I'm sure, right?
Oh yeah.
So you enjoy wearing the
How do you my dream was to win a championship,
Right.
and we won a championship. That doesn't happen very
It
often.
doesn't happen every day. Well, as you pointed out, especially where you had dreamed about it since you were a little kid. So
Ever
very
since,
rarely
yeah.
do people have this dream as a little kid and then have it come to fruition at the end, you know? So that's great. What do you think about, football today? I mean, do you watch the games? Do you enjoy
I
watching
watch
the
them
NFL? You a big fan? Are you a Patriots fan?
Very much so.
All right, so that's good. All right, so you watch the Patriots obviously have had some good years, and
Yes.
you enjoy watching the games and
Yes,
so
I
forth?
do. That level of football is really good.
Right, oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
really,
So do you watch?
getting the best.
We only have a few seconds left, but I'm wondering, like somebody else said, when you watch the game, do you ever think to yourself, this guy's making a mistake, or
All
this
the
guy should
time.
do this? Do you like?
All the
Do you coach from the couch? Is that what- yeah.
Just about.
But you have a lot. You have a lot of knowledge, so I'm sure you must be saying, "Come on, look, go to the left, go to the right, do this, do
Yeah.
that," right?
I think I could do it better.
Bobby, hey, this has been a wonderful half hour. We enjoyed it very, very much. We thank you. We thank you so
Probably
much.
I talk too much.
But
but
no.
my wife is going to tell me I
Well,
talk too much.
you have to understand, when you're a guest on the talk show, there's no such thing as talking too much. You're supposed to talk. Bobby Watkins, one of the all-time greats coming out of the New Bedford area. The great career at New Bedford High School, great career at Ohio State, the Rose Bowl championship, and of course 3 years for, yes, the Chicago Bears, those Chicago Bears in the NFL. What a wonderful story, and we're happy to have him here today. So that's it. I'm Paul Santos, another edition of New Bedford Connections in the Books. We'll see you next time right here.